we actually see that all of this spiritual filth that has become the norm in society, that came from Edom, came from the descendants of Esau, that is slowly but surely not just in the faraway lands and people that are living like barbarians, but are rather in the backyards and even, unfortunately, in our own communities. These types of things are also breeding fruit. You see the generation. You see the businesses. We have a generation where people want things right away, on demand. On demand, I want to watch this. On demand, I want to eat this. On demand, I want this right now.
God in your eyes is where strength starts. Letting only the Torah fill your heart. A beard and suit don't make you pure. It's what's within that holds the cure. Actions speak louder, intentions are clear. Divrei Torah and Gosha, that's what Hashem holds dear. Guard your eyes, guard your soul. That's the path that keeps us whole. It's more than looks, it's what's inside. True Yiras Shamayim is our guide. Every glance, every thought, every day brings us closer or leads us astray. TeShuvah on our calls it worst of sins. If we're not careful, darkness begins. Few teachers talk of this path so deep, yet it's the foundation of faith we keep. When we look at those shagai, what we see, that's how we live in true purity. Guard your eyes, guard your soul. That's the path that keeps us whole. It's more than looks, it's what's inside. True Yiras Shamayim is our guide. Every glance, every thought, every day brings us closer or leads us astray. That's most I learned and Teshuvah sincere. Each day, each moment brings Hashem. It's not just a rule, it's life's design, keeping us close to the holy divine. Guard your eyes, guard your soul. Live with purpose, make it whole. True religion is not what you wear, it's the purity that you declare. With your mind lighting the way, stay strong, stay pure every day. Every sight, every word, guarded in truth. A lifelong journey from the days of youth. For Hashem's light shines through the pure. Guard your eyes and your path is sure.
B'Shem Hashem na'aseh v'natzliach. Shiur Torah, Buchim Habayim. We are back here on our Wednesday night STUMP the Rabbi series, part 222. But as you all know, it doesn't matter whether this is the first time you're watching it or this is something that you've watched for the last several years. Each lecture is independent of itself, where in the beginning we go over some relevant, current affairs that are related to the Torah as well as the world, as well as your lives, and then after that you guys could ask some questions and Be'ezrat Hashem HaKadosh Baruch Hu will give us the answers. Tonight's shiur is going to be for the Refuah Shlema and Hatzlacha Rabbah for our own dear Rav Efraim ben Shulamit, Rabbanit Sarah bat Anat, Rabbanit Levana bat Sarah, Sarah bat Levana, Avi Mori David ben Nesriya, Imi Morati Doris bat Jora, and all of Am Yisrael and all the righteous Noahis that continue to support, continue to help us do all the amazing things that we're doing, Baruch Hashem, at the organization. So tonight, Rabotai Yekarim, we're going to address some issues that I know are going to rub some people the wrong way, initially at least. And even though it's going to rub some people the wrong way in the beginning, certainly this is something that is real. Certainly this is something that's from the Torah. And if you actually listen and pay attention until the end, you are going to see the Divrei Elokim Chaim, the words of the living God. You see how the Torah, how HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us a Torah that literally comes to life, and it's very much relevant to our lives. And the question at hand is, Rabotai, we have Parashat Vayishlach, where Yaakov is about to meet Esau, but we see that Yaakov is very scared of Esau. But he's not scared of Esau beating him up. He's not scared of Esau picking on him. He's scared of something very much different. And before we get to that point, we have to ask ourselves, are we more like Edom, the nation of Esau, or like Isreal, the nation of Yaakov Avinu? Now, of course, the average person out there is going to say, of course, I'm more like Yaakov. I'm a nice person. I like to learn. I watching the Shiurim. And people really don't like Edom, even though sometimes they act like Edom without realizing it. People love Isreal while fighting them without even realizing it. Meaning you can be a fan of Am Yisrael. You can even be part of Am Yisrael, but yet act against Israel without even realizing it. And tonight we're going to uncover a klipa, a layer of the Torah that you've never heard this way before. And we're going to help each and every person know exactly whether they resemble Edom or they resemble Israel. And ultimately, the goal is not to rub you the wrong way, not to upset anyone, but rather to give everyone a reality check of where they stand so they can make an educated decision of what they want to do about it. So the Parasha Kedosha starts off by simply telling us that Yaakov is about to meet Esav. He sends the angels, he sends a message with the angels, but then he prays to Hashem. He cries out to Hashem where he says, Atzileni na miyad achi miyad Esav. Hashem, save me from the hand of my brother, save me from the hand of Esav, for I fear lest he come and strike me down, mother and children. So we see that Yaakov, if you read it literally, he's repeating the same thing. First of all, he's referring to Esav as his brother, and also by his name, Esav, and then it's the same person. And then he's mentioning how how this Esav is a danger not only to Yaakov, but also to his wives, but also to his children. And he's praying to Hashem to help him. But later on, we find out that Yaakov Avinu defeats an angel. So he wrestled an angel. The angel ends up blessing him. So obviously Yaakov is extremely strong. We even heard about this when Yaakov first met Rachel. How he lifted the cover off of the well. That was something that a whole group of shepherds had to do together in order to do it. He did it by himself. So obviously Yaakov is extremely strong. So this fear is not really very much a physical fear, if you will. But yet Yaakov is scared to death of seeing Esav, because Esav could hurt him. Esav could hurt his wives. Esav could hurt his children. And already the average person is saying, see, now I know I'm not like Esau. People are not scared of me. People like me. People are friends with me. People are, invite me to their parties. People give me job offers. So I'm not like Esau. Well, let's hold on a second. Who is Esau? Who is Esau? What is so bad about Esau that we don't like him? That in fact, even Akadosh Baruch Hu says, I hate Esau. Et Esav saneti. I hate Esav. Who is this Esav, Rabotai Yekarim, and how can we make sure to not only stay away from Esav and his followers and those that are supporting him even till this day, but in fact, how do we make sure that we don't act like Esav? For that, Rabotai Yekarim, we're going to have to go and fast forward towards the end of the parasha. In the end of the parasha, we start learning about the descendants of Esav. And in one of the places, we start finding out that the descendants of Esav were not exactly the ideal family, if you will. In fact, they're the worst family and descendants in the history of mankind, where the Torah says in chapter 36, verse number 22, "Vayu bnei Lotan chori ve'emam ve'achot Lotan Timna." Here we're talking about the descendants of Esav, and it says here in verse number 22, the sons of Lotan were Chori and Hemam, and Lotan's sister was Timna. Now, okay, I understand that Lotan had some sons. That's good. But then you're mentioning his sister. Why do I need to know about his sister? Why do I care about his sister? First and foremost, Rabotai Yekarim, this verse seems like a verse that perhaps is not necessary, maybe it could be shortened, if you will. But in fact, Rabotai Karim, the Gemara in Masechet Sanhedrin tells us a little bit more. Well, the Gemara says that discussion among the sages. Sages, of course, covered every single part of the Torah and uncovered to us in the Gemara, in the Talmud. In the Gemara in Masechet Sanhedrin, page 99a, it talks about people that lose their olam haba, lose their eternal blessings, and in fact get eternal punishment. And one of them, the Gemara says, Zeh mefir brit basar, one who violated the commandment, is referring to the one who violates the covenant of the flesh, meaning he wasted seed, committed immorality without doing tshuva. Such a person loses their olam haba. And then the Gemara starts talking about other types of sinners that initially seem like they're not relevant, but then we'll see very much how connected they are. It was taught by the sages, the Gemara says, that about a person where it says, Kidvar Hashem baza, a person that despised the word of Hashem, that the Torah is not from heaven. When he says the Torah is not from heaven, he doesn't believe in the oral Torah, he doesn't believe in the written Torah, or he doesn't believe in a single verse in the Torah, or even a insight of the sages in the Talmud. Such a person is considered as if he despised the word of Hashem. And even if such a person, the Gemara says, said that the entire Torah is from heaven, but there's an exception of one verse. I don't think this verse is from the Torah. Or perhaps one particular insight of the sages. I don't think that's from Hashem, even though it's already in the Talmud. Even if they don't agree with one of the stories that's said about the sages, they simply say this is make-believe, this is a fairy tale, I don't believe it. It's as if he said that the entire Torah is not from heaven. Now, what's the connection of somebody that commits immorality, someone that commits adultery, marries somebody else's wife while they're still married, marries his mother, his sister, all types of disgusting things, at least disgusting to normal people? What is that connected with somebody that thinks that the Torah is not real? It's not from God. So then the Gemara asks, who did such a thing that said that perhaps the Torah is not from heaven? By what verse did they justify such a statement? In page 99b, the Rabbi said, there was a person that was a king of Israel. His father was Chizkiyahu, the tzaddik. Chizkiyahu Melech, that Hashem wanted to make him Mashiach. And he had a son named Menashe, who became the next king, but Menashe at first was a very wicked person. How did this wickedness begin? Menashe would gather around all the people, and of course, if Menashe had a lecture, everybody has to show up. There's no such thing as not showing up. There's no such thing as I'm tired or my wife is pregnant and I have to take her to nothing. Menashe had a lecture, everybody had to show up. What would he lecture about, this Menashe? And this again is all before he did tshuva eventually. Menashe would make fun of the Torah. How would he make fun of the Torah? He used to sit and expound on scriptural narratives, ridiculing them. What would he use to ridicule? He used this verse from this week's parasha, Ve'achot Lotan Timna, that the sister of Lotan is Timna. And you would say, what, did Moshe Rabbeinu have nothing to write in the Torah other than this useless trivia of Lotan's sisters, Timna? What do we need this for? Why do we care that Lotan had a sister and her name was Timna? What use is this? Now, of course, the sages say there's a lot to learn from this. There's a lot of secrets in this verse that at this time Menashe did not realize. But we see that this is a verse, in fact, that the Gemara discusses and says, listen, this is a verse that Menashe used to make fun of the Torah. And of course, anyone that makes fun of the Torah, it's only a matter of time before they despise the Torah openly and make that their life's mission and commit all types of heinous crimes against Hashem. Today people say, no, how do I know that God is real? How do I know that He gave us the Torah? Is there scientific proofs of it? Usually people that don't believe in the Torah today, it's simply because of ignorance of the proofs of the Torah, whether it be scientific or archaeological or rational proofs, scriptural proofs. But here we have someone that came from a religious house, the most religious house. Chizkiyahu made all of Am Yisrael learn Torah to such an extent that they couldn't find even a 6-year-old that did not know the entire Mishnah by heart. The most difficult parts of the Mishnah, the purity and impurity, the 6-year-olds knew. But yet his own son, when he became king, he became a scorner of the Torah. Starting with him making fun of a verse in the Torah that Lotan's sister is Timna. In fact, Rabotai, Eliyahu Navi, he also has a book. And Eliyahu Navi, in his Tana Deve Eliyahu, these are the teachings of Eliyahu Navi, and Eliyahu Zuta, in Parashat Bet, Eliyahu Navi says, אפילו אין בידו של אדם לא מקרא ולא משנה, אלא יושב וקורא כל היום, אחות לוטן תמנע, שכר תורה בידו. Says, even if someone does not know any Torah, he doesn't know the written Torah, he doesn't know the oral Torah, but he sits there and he reads the same thing over and over the whole day. What does he read? Achot Lotan Timna. The sister of Lotan is Timna. Achot Lotan Timna, Achot Lotan Timna, Achot Lotan Timna, Achot Lotan Timna. He does this all day. Eliyahu Navi says he will get rewarded as someone that learns Torah. Yeah, but what about the rest of the Torah? What about the rest of the verse? What about the rest of the parasha, the rest of the Chumash, the rest of the Tanakh, the rest of the Mishnah, the Gemara, the Shulchan Aruch, the Poskim, the Midrashim? What about all that? No. Listen, if he just does that, he's still going to get rewarded as if he learned Torah. And out of all the verses that Eliyahu Navi could have picked, he chose this one. The sister of Lotan is Timna. Okay. Why this verse? What's the so special about this verse that Eliyahu Navi is bringing it? Well, first off, Rabotai, we have to learn a little bit more about this Timna. We have to learn who is this Timna that Hashem decreed she must be mentioned in the Torah to such an extent that we learn about it year after year for over 3,300 years. The Gemara in Masechet Sanhedrin continues and says that, Timna came from royalty. And she realized that Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, They were the holy ones. She wants to be part of that family. And she wanted to marry somebody. Marry Yaakov. Marry Avraham. Marry anybody. I'll convert. Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov rejected her. Not interested. Yeah, but I'll convert. Not interested in converting you. Why not? Avraham and Yitzchak saw that this Timna has a spiritual defect, a klipa, that they simply did not want to associate with. And she decided that it's better for me to go marry Esau, his son, than to stay in my house of royalty. So she ended up marrying Eliphaz, the son of Esau. In fact, the Me'am Loez brings that Hashem punished Avraham and Yitzchak by making that marriage between Timna and Eliphaz produce Amalek, that is tormenting the descendants of Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov until this day. Meaning that despite her klipa, despite her defect, they should have brought her closer, converted her, did something with her that she wouldn't just go and marry the enemy. Because they didn't, the klipa produced even a worse klipa. The impurity produced even worse impurity. Now, the Gemara in the Yerushalmi, in chapter 10, halacha number 1, says that anyone that denies any one thing in the written or the oral Torah is considered a heretic that loses their share of the world to come, that is showing that they're despising Hashem and His Torah. And this Timna, and the verse that's mentioning her, is one of the examples of a verse that people make fun of. So now we have to find out, what did Avraham and Yitzchak see about Timna that's so bad that they don't want to associate with it? Because obviously, it has to make sense. It can't be like people today that don't want to marry one another because of lack of money. Or I'm not going to marry them because they're not rich enough. Or I'm not going to marry him because I don't like his job. He's not making enough money. Or I'm not going to marry her because she's Ashkenazi. Or I'm not going to marry him because he's Sfardi. Or I'm not going to accept him into yeshiva because he's Sfardi. Or because he's Yemenite. Or because he's Ethiopian. Yeah, but they're all Jewish. They're all your brothers. They're all your sisters. Yeah, that's not good enough. Also, they're like, in your mind, they're not really your brothers. They're not really your sisters. Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov were not like that. Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, our forefathers, our patriarchs, knew a lot more than what we do. What did they know? The Midrash Tanchuma, written nearly 1,000 years ago, in Parashat Vayeshev, in Siman Aleph, says as follows: Ve'ele toldot Esav, leodia nivulam. The question is, why is Hashem taking a part of the Torah and telling us about the descendants of Esau? What do we care? We hate the guy. We hate everything he's about. He's the enemy. Why do we need to learn about him? We're not going to run into him. Says the Midrash, these are the descendants of Esau, is written to what? In order to highlight their despicable behavior. She'et motzeh she'en bnei zima, to show that all of the descendants of Esau come from immorality, come from despicable, disgusting behavior. Where you'll see in one of the examples, in Divrei Hayamim Aleph Aleph, Pasuk Lamed Vav, in the book of Chronicles 1, chapter 1, verse number 36, where it says, Bnei Eliphaz Teman ve'omar, Tzvi, v'ga'atam Knaz ve'Timna ve'Amalek. It says in the book of Chronicles, the sons of Eliphaz were named Teman, Omer, Tzvi, Ga'atam, Knaz, Timna, and Amalek. Okay. But yet, in the book of Genesis, in our parasha, chapter 36, verse 12, says, V'timna aita pileges le'Eliphaz. Wait. Timna was the pileges, the concubine, like a wife, to Eliphaz. Hold on a second. On one end, you're telling me that Eliphaz has these kids with all of these names, Teman, Omar, Tzvi, Gatan, Knaz, Amalek, Timna. But then you're telling me that he was married to Timna? How could that be? Is he the father of Timna? Or is he the husband to Timna? Says the Midrash, this is to teach you that Eliphaz married his daughter. But this didn't end there. How did this even happen? Says the Midrash, Eliphaz went to the wife of Seir, one of the other descendants of Esau, and he committed adultery with her. He stole somebody else's wife, and she had a baby from that. Who was the baby? Timna. Timna came as an act of adultery between Eliphaz and the wife of Seir. But of course, he didn't tell Seir about this. So the girl is born, and then he says to Seir, you know what? Let's connect our families even more. I'll marry your daughter. And he marries the daughter of Seir, but in reality, it's his daughter. And if that's not bad enough, the Midrash continues and says, Ele bnei Seir, achori, yoshvei haaretz lotan. These are the descendants of Seir, Seir the Horite, who was on the land. And it says, Lotan. Lotan was one of the children of Seir. Ve'achot Lotan Timna. That the sister of Lotan was Timna, but in reality we know that yes, she has the same mother as Lotan, but not the same father. Because the father was Eliphaz, committing adultery, violating every aspect of the Torah, even before the Torah was given at Mount Sinai, because they had the 7 Noahide laws. This is not, adultery is forbidden even for non-Jews, for Noahites. וכן מוצא שוב שאין כלכלה אלא בני Seir. And don't think that this is the only issue with the descendants of Esau. Rather, you'll even Seir that at this point we saw that his wife was a despicable person that cheated on him. He himself was also despicable. And the rest of his kids were despicable. Well, we see that initially it says, in the Torah, in our parasha, these are the sons of Seir, Lotan, Shoval, Tzivon, Ve'ana. Ule'an nose Ana ben Tzivon. That we see here that initially it says that Shoval, Tzivon, and Ana were the children of Seir. But then we see that Ana is a son of Tzivon also. How could Ana be the son of Seir and the son of Tzivon also? Tzivon was his brother. How could he be the son of his brother? And therefore the Midrash tells us the son of Seir, Tzivon, married his mother and had a child named Ana, meaning that Ana was both his brother and his son. And this disgusting Tzivon didn't stop there. Once Ana grew up and got married, Tzivon stole his wife, married her also. And they had a child named Alivama. And this Alivama, this woman, married her grandfather. Who? Esav. In so many words, all of the descendants of Esav are mamzerim, a result of despicable behavior, incest. Ugh. That's what we have so far. And the Torah mentions it in order to highlight there is a significant difference between Esav and Isreal. Efraim told me that one time he went to a zoo and they got to a play where they had monkeys, chimpanzees, monkeys. And the zoo over there likes to put the names of each monkey. This monkey's name is Larry. And Larry is married to Maya. Okay. And they had Bertha as a daughter. And Larry also married Bertha. And she had a daughter. And Larry married her too. Larry the monkey marrying everybody. His wife, his daughter, his granddaughter. But these are animals. There's no prohibition of doing that. The problem is when people act like that. When people act like animals. Now this may seem like not relevant until you look outside, until you look at society. And you see how this type of immorality is becoming closer and closer. A couple of years ago, I did a shiur, an event here in Florida. And oh Hashem, we had a nice turnout. And we're talking about Parashat Kedoshim. And all the prohibitions of a person is not allowed to marry his sister, his brother, his daughter, his granddaughter, his grandparents, his aunt, all of these different things. Not allowed. Man is not allowed to marry another man, and so on. And then it talks about man is not allowed to marry an animal. And I explained to everyone, it's written in the Torah because it happened. In fact, it's written in the Torah because it's happening. And while most people initially are unaware, there are all types of disgusting things in America and different parts of the world where people marry animals. In Brazil, they have the highest level of the diseases in the reproductive organs because it's customary over there for men to marry donkeys and all types of other animals before they get married to an actual woman. In different parts of the world, they have this. In America, there is a place where people marry sheep. Now, this type of disgusting behavior is still disgusting to most people, but remember, it wasn't too long ago where it was disgusting to be part of all of these rainbow people. It wasn't too long ago where even eating shrimp and seafood was considered the food of prisoners, the food of slaves. It wasn't the food of the elite. It wasn't the food of the normal society. A lot of things have changed in the last 50 years or so. The perspective of people has changed. Things that used to be disgusting, things that used to be illegal, have actually become the norm in our society, which means that a person doing teshuvah, learning Torah, and following the Torah is not just doing themselves a service and a favor by becoming more righteous, giving themselves a chance to go to heaven one day, getting blessings, but literally is also a person that's saving themselves from the most disgusting, despicable behavior that's become norm in society. Look at what's happened to society. And you quickly realize that something is off. Something is off. Something doesn't make sense. Just in the last decade or so, we went from, okay, there is some financial issues, some people did some wrong things, it's not good, to now, you had rooms of people applauding the new art sale where the artist sold a banana taped to a wall for $6.2 million. The guy that bought the banana ate the banana. But he has a certificate now that he's allowed to go and tape a new banana on the wall. It's as if it's the same thing. He even got a roll of tape. In the last couple of years, they started selling emojis. They call them NFTs. Literally, pictures on a computer. For $90 million, $60 million, all types of ridiculous numbers. Enough money to literally feed an entire society. But they're selling little emojis for that. It's all types of fake internet money. If that's not bad enough, you look at what's happened. People have become so violent that just because they disagree with a political candidate, they try to assassinate him without thinking twice. At least a couple of times they tried to assassinate Donald Trump. Another guy killed the CEO of an insurance company. People barge into stores, break everything, take the goods without any repercussions. People protest, thousands and thousands of them protest, either to declare their hate of Jews or to let people know that they're like Lotan, they're like Timna, they're like the curse of the flood. Even if you want to do that, why do I need to know about it? Why do you need to protest? Why do you have to publicize that into society? You don't see normal people publicize to society that they're normal. There's no protest or march or any type of special event held by normal people where a man marries a woman and stays loyal to her. There isn't any special award that they get. There isn't special part of a form that they check off and say, I'm normal. There isn't special titles for them. But today, they ask you, are you a male, female, unknown? What do you mean unknown? How do you not know? Did you ever go to the bathroom before? There, you'll find out. But no. In fact, you have a generation of people that are demanding to fulfill whatever desire they have right then and there, whether that means hurting somebody, stealing from someone, whatever it is. The so-called celebrities, the idols of the generation, one by one, are being exposed for their despicable behavior that they've had over the last career that they had, if that's what they call it. All types of disgusting things. Now, what does that have to do with the average person out that is trying to be decent? Is that you look at the extremes, and that will give you an indication of what the new norm is going to be. And you see the new norm now is immorality. I remember when I was a kid, if someone saw that an old man with a young woman, immediately everyone said, yeah, it's his granddaughter. Today they have a term for it. She's not his granddaughter, she's his wife. Yeah, but he's 90 and she's 20. Yeah, she's his wife. Why would she ever marry a 90-year-old? He's old enough to be our great-great-grandfather. This is coming from znut. This is coming from immorality. In fact, this is what the Gemara says about such behavior already a couple thousand years ago. Rav Yehuda says, in the name of Rav, one who marries his young daughter to an old man Hashem will not be willing to pardon him. You have a daughter, you wanted to marry somebody, that's good. But if you marry her to an old man, because he's going to be the sugar daddy, he's a multi-millionaire, so you figure, yeah, she's going to marry this 80-year-old. I'll probably die in a few years, and then she'll have a lot of money, and then she can marry a normal person. The Gemara says Hashem will never forgive you. Hashem will not, even if your daughter agrees, Hashem will never forgive you. Why? You've promoted immorality. How did you promote immorality? Because it's well known that the old man cannot keep up with the young woman and therefore she's going to commit adultery. Just like we have from Esau for the last few thousand years. This type of behavior did not just come up one day. We see the extremes and we compare them to society, we start seeing, wait, the extremes of 10 years ago have become the norm. The extremes of 20 years ago have become something we promote, people promote. So the extremes of today, where you hear here and there stories of some man marrying his mother, or somebody marrying an alligator or marrying a bird, or in Japan they reported that a few people married the robot, a vacuum cleaner, all types of other robots. These so-called extremes are giving you an indication of the future norms. Now what does that all have to do with heresy, with idolatry? Why does this all have to do with this verse? Efraim explains that if you look carefully throughout all of history, you will always see that the powers of heresy and the powers of idolatry must always come together with immorality. Someone is a heretic, he's also an immoral person. He's also going to commit adultery, he's also going to waste seed, he's also going to do all of those other things. Maybe not right this second, but it's only a matter of time. Or you just don't know about it yet. He hasn't been exposed yet. Person's an idolater? For sure he's an immoral person. For sure. No, but he's a nice guy. Yeah, nice guy. To you, he's a nice guy. Give it time, you will see immorality. Immorality, heresy are always together with each other. And the Torah actually also tells us that. It's not a lesson that we came up with out of common sense. Parashat Maseh, in the book of Numbers, Bamidbar, in chapter 33, verse number 16. Vayisu mimidbar Sinai, vayachanu bekivot ha'ta'ava. Talks about Am Yisrael. They journeyed from the desert of Sinai, and they encamped in Kivot Ta'ava, the graves of Ta'ava. Ta'ava is also means lust. Aside from the literal meaning that this was one place and this was another place, that Am Yisrael traveled, the teachers, the masters of Musar, say, from here we learned that Hashem is telling us that when you journey from the desert, meaning the place of Torah, the Bet Midrash, the yeshiva, the place where you're disconnected from all the immorality of the world, where you're disconnected from all of these disgusting things that we've mentioned thus far, and you abandon the desert, you leave the desert, you leave the Bet Midrash, you leave the world of Torah, know this, it's just a matter of time before you will arrive at the graves of lust. Why? Because they come together. You abandon the Torah. You desecrate the Torah. You're claiming you don't believe it anymore. The real truth is, you're just looking for an excuse to fulfill your desires that are against the Torah. And therefore, one common denominator that you see is that when people go off the Derech, they were religious, and now they're deciding that they don't believe in God anymore, or they don't believe in the Torah anymore, or they don't want to be religious anymore. The one common denominator is that when they go off the Derech, they're simply going to be fulfilling their lusts. One example of that we saw not too long ago. There's a missionary organization, Israelis, that preach idol worship of Christianity. They call themselves Messianic Jews. But in reality, they're Christians in disguise. This organization caused a lot of damage, a lot of confusion for people. And we were going head to head with them. Rabbi Efraim made something like 40 different videos showing how what they're saying is falsehood. At one point, they sued us. Me particularly. And they wanted us to take out the videos, take off the videos, give them money. And I told the lawyers, I will never give them a single penny. They asked for $80,000, $100,000, $70,000, all types of ridiculous numbers. I said, no. I said, okay, then give them $50,000. No. And they kept lowering and lowering. Said, no, I'll spend $100,000 on legal fees, and I'll never agree to give them a penny. It's against my Torah. It's against my God to go and give them money and support their idol worship. Now they claimed that they were right. They claimed that they were righteous. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu showed who's righteous and who's a faker. As during this lawsuit, the main character, the main person that was causing the most amount of damage and confusing the most amount of people was caught cheating on his wife, committing adultery with one of the people at the company. And even here, this Christian organization said they can't have that. This has become public. And they had to part ways with this one idolater, parting ways from another idolater. Why? Because he made them look bad in front of their donors. And literally the company broke apart. They're a shadow of themselves of what they were. And this, of course, certainly helped. The case became meaningless. They never got a single penny from us, as we refused to even give them $5,000 they asked, or even $1 I told them I would never give them. And they never got a single penny from us. How did we know that we're going to win? Simple. They're Edom. Edom is always going to be committing things that are against Hashem. Now, of course, people are going to say, wait a minute. There are people that I know that they may not be Jewish, and they may not even be Noahides that are fulfilling the Torah, but they're nice people. I'm sure they're nice, but that doesn't mean that they don't act like Edom. There's a story of one professor invited his colleagues, all scholars of the universities, to celebrate a new achievement of some kind, and cooked them up one of the family dishes, meatballs. And everyone enjoyed it. 10 of them are on the table, drinking some wine, eating the meatballs, and all of the different side dishes, but the meatballs were the highlight of the night. At some point, there was one meatball left on the dish that was in the middle of the table. 10 people, one meatball left. Of course, the sophisticated idolaters, heretics, did not want to be the one that took the last one. I mean, what kind of example am I showing here? Similar to how Aristotle would talk about how you have to be proper with manners, but yet his own students caught him eating like a dog from a bowl, eating on all fours with his face inside a bowl. And they asked him, Master, you told us we have to be elite, we have to be sophisticated, we have to have good manners, but you're eating like a dog. Why are you eating like a dog? He says, yes, I told you what I told you. But when I eat, I'm not Aristotle. I'm something else. So this professor and his guests, they're all thinking about this last meatball. But nobody wants to be the last one. And all of a sudden, the power goes out. Darkness for a second. And then all of a sudden, a scream. Ah! The lights turn back on. And as you would see, one of the professors grabbed the meatball with his hand and then screamed bloody murder when 9 different forks stabbed his hand. All of them were going to get the meatball. They just didn't want anyone to see. He went with his hand. The rest of them wanted to be a little sophisticated. They did it with the fork. But since they were a couple of seconds late, instead of the meatball, they got his hand. Meaning that if a person is living a life that's against the Torah, if they are an idolater, a heretic, although they may have certain mannerisms, certain behavior that is decent in certain aspects, at the end of the day, the immorality is there. You may not have seen it. They may not express it in front of you, or even often, but it's there. Why? It's part of the equation. When there's heresy, when there's idolatry, there's immorality. There was one Bechor that decided to leave the yeshiva of the Brisker Rav many years ago. And one day, he's walking, and to his dismay, he sees the Rav of Brisk, his Rav, his former Rav, walking in his direction. And he's embarrassed, because he left the yeshiva, he left the religion, he left everything. And as the Rav is walking by him, he wanted to say something to justify his behavior. He says, "Rabbi, listen, I had a lot of questions. That's why I left." But the holy Brisker Rav says to him, "You didn't have questions. You had excuses in order to justify all the lust, all of the ta'avot that you wanted to fulfill. Because if you had questions, you could have easily come and asked those questions. The Torah is not afraid of questions. You didn't ask questions because you didn't have questions. You just simply wanted to justify committing immorality. And you knew you couldn't do that while at the same time following the Torah. So you left the Torah. But to justify that, all of a sudden you said, you know what? I really want to marry this non-Jewish woman, even though I'm Jewish. I really want to do all of these things, but maybe I'll get punished. Oh, you know what? I don't think there's any reward and punishment. But listen, if I eat this non-kosher, the Torah says that I'll become spiritually stupid, in some cases even physically sick. No, you know what? The Torah is not real. Well, I want to steal from people, lend them money with high interest, predatory rates, where they're going to borrow money from me to help their lives, help their businesses, and I'll charge them 80, 100, 200%, pretty much. They're going to be my slave as a result of this loan, where instead of helping them, I'm actually destroying them, but they don't realize it because I'm doing it with a smile. But wait, but the Torah says you're not allowed to lend money with high interest. Oh no, it's because the Torah was only talking about those times. Or it's not talking about me. Or it's all types of other excuses. Why? He has to turn the Torah into something fake, into something irrelevant, into something that he can put aside in order to justify his desires. Heresy always comes with immorality. And in fact, one of the interesting things that people don't like to hear when they're not in the way of the Torah is the verse by the prophet Yecheskel, where Ezekiel says in chapter 23, verse number 10, something that, like I said, is going to rub some people the wrong way. Where Hashem is talking about when Am Yisrael sins, they're like the nations. They're like Edom. What is Edom like? Asher psar chamorim psaram vezirmat susim zirmatam. Their flesh is the flesh of donkeys, and whose issue is the issue of horses. I mean, Hashem, after all, created them. Why is he comparing them to horses and donkeys? Rashi says this is referring to their mentality. When you have abandoned God, when you're worshiping a person, when you're worshiping a statue, when you're worshiping money, that means you have abandoned morality. You've abandoned truth. And therefore, these types of people make their lust their number one thing. Because if you believe in a person and he is going to save you from your sins, so therefore you can make as many sins as you want, you could do whatever you want because he already died for you. Or, better yet, he spoke to an angel and he pretty much nullified the law. And your reward is that after you die, killing the descendants of Isreal, you're going to go to heaven and marry 70 women that have never been married before. Rashi says, why? Why is it that on one, they don't have rules, they've nullified the rules, and the other one, they also nullified the rules and gave you a reward where you're marrying why would you want to marry 70 women? Who knows? But the point is, why? Because of lust. That's all that's on their mind. That's why Hashem compares them to donkeys and horses. Because literally, that's what's on their mind. One of the examples that I don't think many people even realize was in public and without any shame is the current president, Donald Trump, which many people hate and many people love and think he's the savior. A little ridiculous, if you ask me. Whether you like or dislike the guy, at the end of the day, there's one thing that he said a few years ago that is very relevant. His daughter, who converted to Judaism and is a Jew and has Jewish kids. She's a smart woman, and many people find her beautiful. That's great. But her father, president, says in front of an audience on TV, when she's next to him, that if she wasn't his daughter, he would marry her. This is how you think. This is what you say. If she wasn't your daughter, you'd marry her? Yeah, that's how they think. When you do not follow Hashem and His Torah, your compass is based on lust. Today, it's become common for there to be sugar daddies, old men marrying young women. And there was one time a guy that they asked him, how did you convince this 20-year-old girl to marry you? He said, I lied to her. Ah, you told her you're much younger, you're not 65. You told her what, you're 40? You just look a little older? He goes, no. I lied to her. I told her I'm 90. Why would she want to marry you when she's 20 and she thinks you're 90? It's because she figures that if I'm 90, then I'm definitely going to die very soon. And then she's going to get all the money. This is immorality. This is in society today. Young women marrying old people. Why? Because they're both like horses. They're both like donkeys. Now, a person has to ask themselves, what is my compass? What is motivating me to do what I do in life? Am I more like Yaakov, that his moral compass is based on what's allowed and what's forbidden in the Torah? Where if it's allowed, he has to see if it's suggested, if it's recommended, if it's good. And if it's forbidden, then why is it even on his mind? Why is it on her mind? The moral compass is based on God's laws. Or is he more like Edom, where there is no moral compass? In fact, the compass is his lust. This is like the teachings in the Shulchan Aruch. For anyone that learned Shulchan Aruch, or at least part of it, you go to Ilchot Shabbat in Orach Chaim, Ilchot Borer. Ilchot Borer in the Shulchan Aruch, in Siman 319, tells you about the 3 conditions that must be met in order for you to separate one thing from the other on Shabbat and not be a violation, because you're not allowed to take the waste that is there. Let's say you have a pot full of, peels and all types of stuff that you don't want. You can't just take all of that out in order to leave that pretty apple or that food that you want to eat. That's borer. Can't separate the waste from the good. But in order for that borer, for that separation to be permitted, it has to be taking food from the waste rather than the waste from the food. Meaning you took the piece of fish from the waste, or piece of apple or whatever it is, from the plate of the waste, rather than the waste from the food. That's condition 1. 2, you have to do it with your hand and not with some tool. And 3, you have to do it for the sake of eating it now and not for later. It's called ochel beyad umiyad. Eating in the hand, it's a food that's in your hand, and for right away, for immediate use. That's how you know that you are actually following the law and not violating Shabbat. Where if you don't learn the laws of Shabbat, for sure you're going to violate Shabbat. You're going to have, let's say, common food that people have. They have all types of, let's say, sunflower seeds. Sunflower seeds. And they have, or all types of peanuts, or whatever it is. And there's a bowl that has everything in it. And what does he do? He eats it, takes the peel off, leaves it in front of him. It's disgusting. By the way, if people eat it where they take the peels and they leave it in front of them on the table, where people see their saliva, and he doesn't think there's any big deal. Or he has a plate of something. He says, no, listen. You gave me this fish with the skin on it, or you gave me this chicken with the bones in it. I don't like that stuff. So he takes the bone out and he puts it somewhere else. Or he takes the skin out and he puts it somewhere else. That's a violation of the laws of Shabbat. So how does he do it? He has to eat the fish while the skin is there, or the chicken while the bone is there, and just take the pieces of chicken and eat them. No one's telling you to eat the stuff that you don't like, but to separate it, if you're separating the bad from the good, that's violating. Same thing if you're doing it with your hand, with a tool. So how does this have anything to do with immorality, ochel, food, is certainly one of the, if not the top lust that we have today. Where despite the fact that there is many issues in society today, everyone knows, even the people that are violating it, knows that everything we're saying is true, that men are supposed to marry women, and vice versa, and those women have to be someone that's not their sibling or their parent, and not an animal, but rather a human. Everyone knows that this is true. They may disregard it, they may not care about it, but everyone knows this is the norm. This is what's supposed to be. Everyone knows you're not supposed to steal. Everyone knows that you're not supposed to pray to a statue. Everyone knows this stuff, but again, they disregard it. But despite all of that, society knows the difference between right and wrong. On the issues of morality, even if they disregard it, everyone knows they're not allowed to take somebody else's wife or somebody else's husband. They wouldn't want someone to do that to them. But when it comes to food, people don't have any guards. In fact, when people think about what they're going to eat for lunch for an hour and a half, or when they go to a restaurant and tell everybody about it, of how they ate at this fancy restaurant, and they put their pictures on the internet, and they eat enough for 3 people, no one tells them, what's wrong with you? Why are you such a tavan? Why are you such a person that's like an animal? Why are you eating so much? Why are you only talking about food? Why are you only thinking about food? No one says that. In fact, they celebrate it. Like, wow, I wish I went to that restaurant. I wish I spent 2 hours, picking what I'm going to eat for lunch. I wish I spent 4 hours cooking a meal that took me 5 minutes to eat. In fact, that lust of food is to such a high level that no one thinks there's anything wrong with it anymore. While the others, there's still some normal people out there that realize it's wrong. Says a Efraim, this whole issue of immorality and heresy is something we see even in the laws of Boel. Where the laws of Boel, where you're allowed to separate one from another. You're allowed to separate the food from the waste with your hand and not with a tool, and for immediate eating and not for later. From there you can learn. Why? Because the ochel is a lust. The lust of food, the lust of immorality. Beyad, using your hand, that's a person that is after immorality. He doesn't care what anybody thinks. He's taking matters into his hands. He's going to do whatever he wants. And to eat it right away. A person that's chasing lust, not only is chasing lust, not only doesn't care, or she doesn't care what anybody thinks and how many people she's hurting and how many families she's breaking, but when she wants to do something against Hashem, when he wants to do something against Hashem to fulfill their own lust, they want it right now. They want it right this second. They don't want to wait for next week. They don't want to wait for tomorrow. Right now. And we actually see that all of this spiritual filth that has become the norm in society, that came from Edom, came from the descendants of Esau, that is slowly but surely, not just in the faraway lands and people that are living like barbarians, but are rather in the backyards and even, unfortunately, in our own communities. These types of things are also breeding fruit. You see the generation. You see the businesses. We have a generation where people want things right away, on demand. On demand, I want to watch this. On demand, I want to eat this. On demand, I want this right now. That's where fast food came from. The whole concept of fast food. Of you go to a place and you're going to get food right away, on the spot. That's a product of that mentality. Now, even though there are certain benefits to it where you don't have to cook for 4 hours just to eat something, the whole concept of fast food in itself has changed. From originally it was you're going to get the food relatively quickly. A few minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, you're going to get it. Now, they're even penalizing a company if they don't serve it fast enough. Now it's never fast enough. Now on demand is the top priority in corporate America. Amazon, great company, is trying to beat itself. In the past, it would deliver things within a week. Then it got to 2 days. Now it's new. Target is to get the goods to people within a day, and in some cases, the same day. I mean, if I want to buy something, certainly I want it right away, but that's not necessarily something that I'll demand. But the mentality of the generation is, I want it, even if it's wrong. I don't care what anybody thinks. And in fact, I want it now. These are some of the fruits of Edom. This is the mentality of the generation. And one of the things that a person needs to do with all of this information is not point at everybody else that they know that's acting this way, but rather point at themselves and ask themselves, where am I in this equation? Am I upset if the food is not ready as soon as I get home? Am I upset if my order is not ready quickly enough? Am I upset if things are not perfect like I expect them to be? Am I taking somebody else's wife, husband? Am I looking inappropriately at things that are forbidden to me? Am I doing things that the Torah says is forbidden when it comes to morality? Am I acting like a horse? Is my brain like the brain of a donkey? In fact, are my children that way? Where people allow their kids to be like everyone else, demanding right away, now. I want it and I want it now. A parent that allows their kids to behave in such a way is breeding and raising animals, not children. If you allow your kids to be like many people in this generation, where they want it now, no matter if it's right or wrong, I don't care what anybody thinks, I'll do whatever I want, and you allow this, then you're raising animals. Perhaps you should get a cage. But if you want to raise kids that are more similar to Yaakov, then first and foremost, you should teach them manners. Teach them morality. Teach them patience. Teach them that you can't just have whatever you want to have. Teach them the Torah. And perhaps they're not only going to follow it, but they're one day going to have kids that also follow it. And you're going to have a family and descendants like Yaakov, and not like the Mamzer and the Mamzerim, Eliphaz and his wives and grandchildren, all of the descendants of Esau. This, Rabotai Yekarim, is what I wanted to learn with you tonight. I know it's very much relevant and not something that you're going to hear in many places, either because people are in denial or they simply do not have the zchut, the merit, to learn the truth of the Torah and teach it to you. Either way, we thank Hashem for it. We thank our dear Rav for it. And we'll continue to do it. Bezat Hashem. That being said, you guys can Bezat Hashem start asking some questions. And Bezat Hashem, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will provide his answers. Chavod. I wanted to ask a few questions. Okay. About the psak I published about Manis Friedman. Okay. Who are the rabbis that signed the psak? Their names are on the letter. Rav Shlomo Sharvit, Rav Tzvi Didi, Rav Efraim Kachlon, Rav Yaakov Zamir, and of course we also have the support of Gdolei Israel that are behind us. These are all dayanim. They're not just people that learn Torah here and there. They're all dayanim. It's a bed din. And by the way, as a side note, there is another bed din in America that also published a answer to a question where someone asked, does God need you? And the bed din actually wrote that to say that God needs you is 100% considered heretical and against the Torah. So this was another bed din that said the same thing we've been saying for the last several years. What should Palestinians do to Zionists when they win? Well, Palestinians are not winning. In fact, they caused a lot of damage to innocent people, not only the Jewish people, but they caused a lot of damage to themselves by attacking people that are helping them. The privileges that the Palestinians, which really it's just Arabs, because it's Palestine is not really a country, and it's just a bunch of people from different Arab countries, whether it be Saudi Arabia or Lebanon or Syria, Jordan. But anyway, they live in Israel, and any one of them that actually works in Israel gets citizenship, major benefits, financial benefits, health benefits. So when they hurt Jews by attacking them, by terrorizing them, all they're doing is hurting themselves. They're not bettering themselves. The amount of money that was given to the leaders of the Palestinian Authority, billions and billions of dollars, should have enabled them to literally build the most advanced city in the world. But instead, those leaders that are manipulating their people to think that Israel is the enemy, those leaders kept the money for themselves, enriched themselves, build themselves castles in Qatar, in France, in different parts of the world, while their own people remain poor and miserable. So when you're asking about what should the Palestinians do when Israel wins, first off, Israel already won. And second off, the people that are still alive and want to have a normal life should thank Israel and should do whatever they can to help Israel continue fighting the enemy, continue promoting peace, continue developing good things, and they should be decent people. Not so hard. Okay. There we go. Rabbi, last Shabbat I ordered the Chumash and it should come by Monday, but it came on Shabbat and I took it and I studied it from it. Is that a violation of Shabbat? Now, if it was delivered to you on Shabbat, then you're not allowed to, if you're Jewish, I'm assuming, you're not allowed to open the box that was delivered to you on Shabbat, because certainly it came from outside the Tchum, which is the permissible area of where you're allowed to be on Shabbat once Shabbat starts. So if a box came, some type of delivery, mail came on Shabbat, you're not allowed to open it on Shabbat. You have to wait until after Shabbat. Now, the fact that it came on Shabbat is not your problem, because you ordered it and you have no control of when it's going to arrive. If they chose to deliver it on their own on Shabbat, that's not your problem. You're just not allowed to open it on Shabbat. You have to wait until Shabbat ends. Once Shabbat ends, you're allowed to open it and use it whenever you want, including the next Shabbat or any other day. Okay. I heard some big rabbis from Ol Sameach about Friedman. These rabbis seem very knowledgeable and bring sources from all over the Torah, including the Zohar, Hasidut, Kabbalah, that God needs us. Well, I don't know what is your knowledge of Torah in order to determine what a big rabbi is, but a dayan is certainly bigger than a rabbi that is a rabbi of a synagogue or yeshiva or simply a speaker on the internet. Number one. Number two, the four dayanim that signed the letter also include among them people, dayanim, that actually wrote sfarim, real serious sfarim, responses. You know the significance of a rabbi based on the books that he writes. If he writes books that just tell you stories, even give you musar, that's nice, but that's nothing in comparison to someone that has written responses, because that's the highest level of Torah. In fact, not only did Rav Sharvit and Rav Efraim have written books, and also Rav Tzvi Didi, but Rav Efraim has written over 50 books. If you ask those rabbis how many books they read, I'd say at least one of them I know probably didn't read 50 books. So that's two. Number three, one of the dayanim that signed the letter of Yaakov Zamil was the number one dayan on planet Earth. He was the top dayan in the Bet Din Gadol of Israel. That means he was the number one dayan. So for him to sign the letter, for him to support going against this heretic, I don't need to convince anybody anymore of who's right and wrong. Because if you're thinking that those rabbis from Or Sameach or from wherever know more than dayanim, no more than someone has written over 50 books, no more than people that are poskim, no more than the top dayan, Rabbi Yaakov Zamir. He was the dayan, the head of Bet Din of the Bet Din Gadol. He was the chavruta of Rav Yitzchak Yosef for, I think, maybe 50 years. If you think they know more Torah than he does, in any aspect, whether it be the pshat, the remez, the sod, any aspect, then you obviously do not know enough in order to determine who knows and who doesn't. So as far as them bringing sources, they did not bring valid sources. They brought manipulations of words. And anyone that wants to listen to them and wants to follow them, by all means, it's your choice. It's your choice to do whatever you want in life. But you're never going to find real serious Torah scholars that are going to support Manis Friedman. It's simply that actually knows what he says. Meaning if they know what he has said and what he says, they will never support him. They will all determine he's a heretic because what he says is clear heresy against the Torah. And in fact, saying God needs you is not the only heretical message that he says. He also says God has an arm. God is physical. He says things that are against the 13 principles of faith. He says there's no Gehenna. There's no fire. He violates literally the 13 principles of faith. So saying God needs you is not the only issue. That's just one of them. That's just one. There are many issues. And he continues to create more issues. If you want to continue listening to him and to those that support him and poison your neshama, by all means, just know your blood is in your hands. You'll be charged with murdering yourself. You want to do it? By all means. Listen, a person can jump off of a bridge if they want. No one's going to stop them. But they'll be charged as a murderer. Send me your address. I have a package to send you. There's a public address on the website for our P.O. box. You can send whatever you want to send over there. But if it's anything heretical or something that's promoting idolatry or anything simply that's against the Torah, just know that it's going to be meeting the garbage right away. It will never even arrive at the house. It will simply be disposed and thrown out on the spot. Once in a while, people send me their garbage, and I just don't understand why they can't just throw their garbage in their garbage pails, and they have to give me the job of throwing it in the garbage. But if it's something decent, like some people have sent me in the past, by all means, you want to send? I'm currently studying Torah, and I'm very interested in Kabbalah. Is it okay to start learning Kabbalah? I heard that you shouldn't learn. That you should learn it from a Sephardic rabbi for right pronunciation. What do you think, Rabbi? It's not a matter of what I think, but Chachmei Israel, the scholars of Am Yisrael, have said that a person should not learn Kabbalah unless he has mastered all of the basics. You have completed the entire Chumash, the entire Tanakh, the entire Shas Bavli, the Yerushalmi, the Shulchan Aruch. You've covered an enormous amount of Torah. You know all of the basics. You've learned for many years. And then after that, your rabbi tells you it's time to teach you Kabbalah, and he's going to teach you Kabbalah one-on-one. Then you could certainly learn. But if it's just simply you decide that you want to learn Kabbalah on your own, no, that's not a good idea. Many people that have become heretics, unfortunately, started that way, where they don't have a rabbi. They decide what they want to learn, when they want to learn. In so many words, they have a Sav's mentality of, I'm going to do whatever I want, when I want, however I want. No one's going to tell me what to do. Even if somebody said that it's wrong, even if the Torah giant said it's wrong, I'm still going to do it. They have a Sav mentality in their learning Torah, and they end up becoming problems. Problems to themselves, problems to their wives. Unfortunately, many times people reach out to me, telling me that they have problems in their shlom bayit with their kids and so on. And you realize that although they're complaining about their wife or their kids or the rabbi, in reality, they are the problem. They are the problem. It's not everybody else that's a problem. Maybe other people are doing things that may not be correct 100%, but really, most of the time, the person is the problem. So why? Because they don't listen to their rabbi, they don't have a rabbi, they just do and think whatever they want to think. And they assume that just because they read a few books, they listen to a few lectures, that means that they have enough knowledge to determine what the Dat Torah is. And the truth is that you can give lectures for 50 years. You can learn Torah for 50 years and still not have Da'at Torah. People think it's just because they learned some lectures or they read some books, okay, they know what Torah, they know the hidden meaning, the real meaning, the what's the truth. They think they know it. It's very, very frustrating to sometimes see people act arrogant about what they think they know when in reality they don't know even half of what they think they know. So it's important for a person to have a rabbi that's Talmid Chacham, that's going to direct them and give them guidance on everything. If you're asking me whether you should learn Kabbalah, already I know that it's very likely you do not have a rabbi, and certainly you're not ready to learn Kabbalah, because if you were ready to learn Kabbalah, then your rabbi would have already told you whether you are or aren't, and he was going to teach you or send you to someone that's going to teach you to do it. So if you're asking me that particular question, that means that you are missing key parts of the ingredients. And Kabbalah is not something that you're supposed to learn by yourself. Kabbalah is something that you learn directly from a rabbi. Now, there are certain books that mention different Kabbalistic teachings, such as the Tanya or different books out there, but the reality is that Gedolei Israel say that you shouldn't learn this stuff or focus on this stuff unless you're ready to and you have the prerequisite tools to learn these things. And people get confused by it, and people misinterpret things. In fact, there was actually a psak from a Bet Din that came out, I think today, yesterday, either way, in the last few days. A psak Bet Din from Israel against one of the heretics that's in Israel that has decided that he doesn't need a rabbi, that has decided that he knows more than all the rabbis of our generation, of the previous generation, of the previous generation. He knows more than the Arizal, than Rabbi Chaim Volozhin, than the Ram. He knows more than Rabbi Akiva. He decided that he knows more than everybody. He calls everybody all types of vile names, makes fun of the sages, but he still holds himself as a rabbi. So the Bet Din finally, after the damage that this Rasha has made in recent years, finally came out with a psak din that it's forbidden to learn from such a person, that he cannot be counted in the minyan, and so on and so forth. Similar to Manis Friedman, similar to him. And one of the things that this Rasha, this wicked person, does is that he brings different parts from books that he says, Kabbalistic teachings, and he tries to explain to them, to people, when he himself doesn't understand what he's talking about. So when he explains it, he's telling people all types of weird things, all types of things that are wrong, that are literally, desecrating the Torah, that are literally mocking the Torah. And in so many words, this is because he does not have a rabbi. He decided that he's going to learn parts of the Torah that he was forbidden from learning. And it ended up not only turning him from being someone that was on the right path into a heretic, but turned him into a machtia rabim, into someone that causes the public to sin. And there's no doubt in my mind that unless he does some miraculous tshuva, like Menashe, he is going to suffer endlessly in this world and next from his own doings. This is just the beginning. So it's tough to see people just simply destroy their lives that way, but unfortunately people do it. And it's all based on what we talked about tonight, which is a person has a lust. He wants it now. She wants it now. They don't care what anybody says. They're not going to listen to anybody, not their rabbi, not the community, not their spouse, not anyone, especially people that know more than them. They're not going to listen to anyone. They think they know more than everybody else. And not only that, they're going to do it right now. So people like that are acting like Esau's descendants. Esau's descendants is Eliphaz, Amalek, Timna, all of these, vile people. Don't be like them. Be like Yaakov. Have patience. follow the tradition, follow the Torah, and B'ezrat Hashem, you'll succeed. Oh, I'm right that you don't have a rabbi. Okay, so B'ezrat Hashem, get a rabbi. There's a Torah scholar that learns Torah to guide you. And by B'ezrat Hashem, you'll succeed. If you have any particular questions, you could always send me a WhatsApp message. You could ask questions. You could also get the AI rabbi that's going to get you questions. You need guidance. Hundreds of questions people ask me every day. I'll do my best to respond to the questions you have. Oh, and I'm right also about the fact that you haven't completed the basics. Okay, so should you discontinue reading Sefer Yetzirah? Absolutely. Stop learning it immediately. Is the idea of people believing that God needs them come from arrogance? Absolutely it does. Yes. Paro, when Moshe Rabbeinu came to him and told him that God said free his people, what did Paro say? Who is this God that I should listen to him? Paro thought he was God. So he pretended like he doesn't go to the bathroom, but he made a law that no one's allowed to leave the house at specific times of the night so he can go to the Nile River and relieve himself. So there was no toilets in the entire palace that he had. But this all comes from arrogance, sure. Is it better to learn Chumash without Rashi but finish the portion, or learn for Rashi only 1 hour a day? To learn Chumash without Rashi is a waste of time because you're not going to understand anything. You have to learn Chumash with Rashi. How many times does the rabbi think of Hashem every day? As often as... all the time. What do you mean? Often. How do you not think about Hashem? What else did I think about? Even when you deal with basic things, whether it's paying bills, paying salaries, going to meetings and so on, everything's connected to Hashem. Why does a couple have to separate into separate living quarters before conversion? I learned that they don't if they have a small child, but can you explain the reason? Okay, so if it's two Gentiles, a man and a woman, that is converting together, whether they have a child or they don't have a child, they do not need to separate before conversion. The only time where people have to separate is when one is Jewish and one is not Jewish, when there's intermarriage involved. So there, the Bet Din wants to know that the person that's converting is not converting only for the sake of marriage, but rather is converting because she or he really wants to follow the Torah. And not just because her boyfriend or his girlfriend happens to be Jewish and, the family's not going to accept them because the other one's not Jewish. So the Bet Din wants to make sure that they're willing to convert even without the relationship. So that's why they do it. Now, as far as if there's a child involved, certainly that creates complications, that creates difficulties, makes it impossible for some people to separate. But again, remember that each Bet Din has certain ways, certain policies, certain things that they do based on their experience in that community. So that particular Bedin may have a policy where it's set in stone. The two people have to live in two separate houses the whole time, while the one is converting, and while other Bedin may not have that same policy. So it's not a halacha set into stone. I mean, the reality is that a Jew is not allowed to be with a non-Jew. Not a few months before the conversion, and not at all before the conversion. Even a year before the conversion, they're still not allowed to be together. But people do it anyway. So obviously, the rabbis that are dealing with conversion, they have experience. They know what that there is a people that are coming to you for help, but at the same token, they're not necessarily going to listen to everything you say or everything that the Torah says because they're used to a certain life. So you have to decide whether they're valid candidates or not, whether they truly want to or not. Conversion is a lot more difficult than people think. People think that conversion is like going to the Department of Motor Vehicles and getting a license, or passing a test and getting a permission to do something. Conversion is a lot more difficult than people imagine. In fact, there are a lot of people that come to convert to Judaism, and they simply are not the right people. They may want to convert, but they really are not the right candidates. They want to convert for the wrong reason. They don't realize, but that they're not going to be capable of actually living proper Jewish lives because they're not converting for the right reason. And then there are certain people that are the perfect gift. They're a gift to the nation of Israel that Hashem gave. And that's what the Chachamim say, that one of the reasons why Hashem spread Am Yisrael in all four corners of the world, even though it was a punishment, but there is a benefit in it. What's the benefit? Is that we're going to be able to get the people to convert from all over the world. In fact, Chachamim also say that when Hashem sees that Am Yisrael is doing good, a certain community is doing good, then he wants to give them a gift. What does he do? He takes the best of the nations, and he gets them to convert. He gets them to convert. All of a sudden, the person wakes up, and they're interested about Judaism. Or they find out that they have some grandparent that may be Jewish, and now they're motivated to find out what this Judaism is all about. Or they watch a lecture by a rabbi that used to be on Wall Street as a hedge fund manager and a broker. They got sick, and they decided they want to become Jewish. Why? Because Hashem saw this particular person is really, really good. They have good nature. They have good character traits. They have amazing qualities about them. And Hashem wants that non-Jew to become a Jew as a gift to Am Yisrael. But then at the same token, there's also punish to Am Yisrael. What's the punishment? The Erev Rav. These are people that are not looking to convert for the right reason. They're problem causers. They're troublemakers. They only have bad things to say about Jews. They don't really want to live like the Jewish people. They just are. They want to be different, or it's all types of crazy people. And unfortunately, sometimes Hashem allows those types of people to convert as a punishment to Am Yisrael. The Erev Rav. Erev Rav started off as the people from Egypt that didn't really want to convert for the sake of following Hashem, but rather they converted because they wanted to learn from Moshe Rabbeinu what they thought was witchcraft that was superior to theirs. So the leaders of the Erev Rav were actually the necromancers of Paro. And they thought that Moshe Rabbeinu, the miracles that Hashem made through the hand of Moshe Rabbeinu, they thought that it's really Moshe Rabbeinu making tricks, making magic. And even though they were magicians and necromancers and they were able to do all types of things, they obviously saw that his is superior, so they wanted to learn from him. So they figured, let's pretend like we want to convert. That way we'll become his students, and that way he'll teach us. He'll teach us those tricks. So they became the Erev Rav. They became the leaders of the Erev Rav. So there are some people like that till this day, that they want to convert for the wrong reason. And Baruch Hashem, Hashem saves us from some of them, where He doesn't allow them to succeed. But unfortunately, some of them do. Some of them do succeed, and they convert, and they cause trouble. Is it true that Avraham and Sarah also had a daughter? Yes, it's true. Her name was Bakol. It says that Hashem blessed Avraham Bakol. Bakol, Chazal say, is also the name of his daughter. And she actually died on the same day that Sarah Imenu died. If I cannot ever learn 4 Rashis a day on Chumash, when am I ever going to finish the Chumash? We're supposed to learn the Chumash every year. The way to do it is this. You're supposed to, the halacha in Shulchan Aruch is that there's something called Shtay Mikra v'Echat Targum, which means to read the parasha without Rashi twice, and to read the commentary of either Onkelos or Rashi once a week. So the parasha twice a week, and the commentary once a week. Now, how do you do it? It's one of the ways to do it is as follows. You read the parasha first. If let's say if you have a lot of time, if you have hours per day, then you could obviously do. I'll give you a couple of ways to do it. One way is to read the parasha just by itself without commentary on Sunday. Start off the week, you read the parasha on Sunday. It'll take you half hour, an hour, depends if whether you're a fast or slow reader, 15 minutes, it depends how fast you are. But you read the parasha once. You don't have to understand everything. You just need to read it. And ideally in Hebrew. If you don't know Hebrew, then obviously read it in your, in your language. So that's the first time. Okay? Then the rest of the week, let's just say you have an hour a day, 2 hours a day to learn. Even, what you do is every day you'll read one of the commentary on one of the aliyot. Each parasha has 7 aliyot. 7 aliyot, meaning 7 segments that it's separated by. When you see people on Shabbat go up to the Torah, that's called an aliyah. So how do they know when the turn of each person is? That's because each parasha is separated into 7. And most of the year, we read only one parasha at a time. There's a couple of times a year that we read a double parasha, meaning 2 parashot, and there's a different separation of those double parashot into 7. But it's always 7 aliyot. It's always 7 segments. So what you do is you spend each day reading the commentary on one of the segments. So let's say if you can do it, the parasha itself, it's a half hour, let's say, to read just the parasha without commentary. That's a half hour. Then you spend the next half hour, maybe an hour, depends on, again, how fast of a reader you are, reading the commentary on that first segment. And if you want to know when the first aliyah or second aliyah is, you'll see usually on the sides where usually it's just white. There's the text, and then there is next to each sentence there's letters or numbers. Usually it's letters for Chumash, and that's the verses. That's the number of verses. But then every so often you'll see something that's on the right near those the verses, near the letters that are there on the right, where the white section is. That's not a verse number, but rather it says Rishon, which means first, or Sheni, second, or Shlishi, third. So that's the Aliyah. That means that from the last part until now, that's one segment. So you now spend that time reading the commentary by Rashi for that first segment. So that means that you're reading the verse that's there and seeing the commentary on it. That'll take you a little while. That's your studying for the day of the Chumash. The next day, on Monday, you do the second part, the second aliyah, commentary there. You finished Monday. Then Tuesday, the third aliyah. And Wednesday, the fourth aliyah, and so on. Now, when it comes to Shabbat, that's the seventh day, you're going to do two things. One, at some point during the day, you're going to read the commentary of the seventh aliyah, which is usually very short. So you're going to read the commentary. If you could do that before you go to Beit Knesset, that's great. If you can't, then do it during the afternoon. Do that. And so now you finished the commentary once, and you finished reading the Torah once. But you still need to read it one more time. So what do you do the second time of reading it? While you're at Beit Knesset and the Baal Koreh is reading from the Sefer Torah itself, follow along with him. Not just listening, but actually looking at the words and reading it with your mouth, but just, only that you could hear it. And that's the third time. That's the third time where at that point, you've completed reading the Torah, the parasha, once, and the commentary once. So now you've completed the Chumash 3 times in 1 week. Now, if there's an issue during the week where something happened and you skipped a day or two, there was a trip or illness or whatever, life happened, and you didn't get to finish the any one of them, either reading the entire parasha one more time or the commentary, you have until Tuesday morning of the following week to complete it in order to fulfill that mitzvah. Meaning that even if you don't complete it by Shabbat, still before you start the next week, go and continue finishing what you haven't done by Tuesday morning, and you'll be considered as if you completed it. But obviously don't rely on this every week, because then you're always going to be behind. Ideally, you should finish the parasha at least once and the commentary at least once by Shabbat, and even before you get to shul, because that way, when the Baal Koreh is reading, you not only have you're more relaxed and you understand what's being said, and you're completing your last part, but also you have created certain angels already at the beginning of the week that are going to protect you for the rest of that week. This is why it's highly recommended to read the parasha at the beginning of the week and not wait until last minute. Because when you read the parasha, when you read the Chumash, as a Jew, since it's an obligation, you're creating certain angels that are going to protect and empower you for the rest of that week. And this actually heard originally by Rav Shani. Rav Shani is a Mekubal, Talmid Chacham, one of the grandkids of the Baal Ahavat Chaim, Sefer Ahavat Chaim, and is an extraordinary Torah scholar, Sheikhia Bezrat Hashem. And he says that there's certainly every mitzvah, the Mishnah in Masechet Avot tells us, every mitzvah we make, we create angels. Every sin we make, Chas v'Shalom, creates people that are going to go against us, all types of creatures that are going to go against us. Now, when you read the Chumash, you're creating an angel, just like any other mitzvah, but there are specific angels that are going to protect you and in essence, help you throughout your whole week. If you actually do it at the beginning of the week. If you do it the earlier, the better, obviously. If you could do it by Sunday, that's ideal. If you could do it Monday, that's also good. Tuesday, it's always good. But obviously, the more you have, the more good it's going to be. I can tell you from my own personal experience, when I complete the weekly parasha early in the week, it's usually the best weeks. It's usually the best weeks. When I complete the parasha at the end of the weeks, it's a little bit tougher. And sometimes a lot tougher. So, highly recommended to do it. And again, like I said, what I recommended is very simple for anyone to do. Even if you just started learning Torah now, you could read the parasha itself, the Torah portion itself, usually within a half hour to an hour at most. If you'll be done, and then separate the rest of it for the rest of the week, and the third part is on Shabbat. Rabbi, who is your Rabbi? Rabbi Efraim Kachlon. That's my Rav. He's an extraordinary Talmid Chacham. He's written over 50 books. In fact, we have 2 books right now that are going to print. One of them is a book he already wrote many years ago, but it was never published. It's a commentary on one of the Chachamim from over 100 years ago. And that's one book. And another book is also a book against Manis Friedman and all of the countless Torah sources that show that Manis Friedman is violating the Torah in literally every single aspect. So those 2 books are going to print as we speak, and Bezat Hashem will be available for everyone to read, to share, Bezat Hashem. And there's a bunch of other books that are being edited, and I think at this point, Baruch Hashem, he's working on maybe 30 books, 40 books. Like, meaning that he's already published over 50. I forgot the number, and there's another probably close to 50 that are in the works. Some of them are already ready, just final edits. Some of them need a little more work. But Baruch Hashem, he's amazing. He's amazing. Baruch Hashem, he's a gift to the generation. Is a commentary on a Chumash enough, or are there more books to read to understand more? Of course, there is the Talmud, but it's way big. Okay, so reading, if you have the Art Scroll Chumash. Art Scroll Chumash looks like this, as I've shown you guys many times in the past. If you have the Art Scroll Stone Edition Chumash, it has sufficient commentary for you, for a beginner, for someone that is starting out, even the first few years. It's more than enough for you to get commentary here. Now, once you've already been learning for several years, you've completed the Chumash and the commentary already at least a couple of times, then certainly you should do more. You could do Onkelos, you could do Ramban, you could do Chizkuni, you could do, there's endless number of other sources. But reading the commentary from here, there is more than enough to fulfill the halacha. Now, as far as knowledge is concerned, there's an endless amount of books, literally millions of books, that will give you more information about what the Torah is telling us. Millions. So that's why the Mishnah in Masechet Avot says it's not for you to complete. It's not for you to finish. Meaning there's no way to finish the Torah. Even if you read every day, 24 hours a day, without eating, without drinking, without breathing, for 24 hours a day, for 1,000 years, you still would not complete the entire Torah. Or even 1% of the Torah. The Torah is endless. But as far as to fulfill the halacha, Hashem made the laws, in a way where it's possible for us to fulfill them. So to fulfill the halacha of reading the Chumash is very easy, or at the very least, it's very possible for everyone. A beginner or an expert could do it. To read the commentary, such as Rashi or Onkelos, is also very much possible for every Jew. Possible for every Jew. The Chumash is the 5 books of Moses. Chumash is 5 books of Moses. I've got more books this year than any other year. Oh, good. I mean, as long as you read them, that's good. It's good to have Sfarim, holy books, but it's even better to read them. So read them. What do you think of the teachings of Rabbi Nachman of Breslov? Baruch Hashem, fantastic. All the teachings of all of the Chachmei Israel are good, are delicious, are amazing. Is reading and listening to the parasha the same in terms of reward and evaluation? No. Reading requires more toil, more effort. Also, just as a food for thought for people that watch my lectures, don't ask me, can I ask you a question? Because that's a question and it's just simply a waste of time. Ask away. Whatever your question is, ask and try to make it short and to the point. Don't write a Megillah. I watch the lectures that you teach in the world, and it's very rewarding. Thank you, Rabbi. Baruch Hashem. Thank you. Why don't you think Jesus is the Messiah? Because he's not. He does not qualify. He doesn't even qualify to be the donkey of the Mashiach. He was a wicked man that violated the Torah and caused other people to violate the Torah, and he does not fulfill any of the qualifications of the Messiah in any aspect. He's not a descendant of King David. Even according to the New Testament, it shows he's not a descendant of King David. It's ridiculous that anyone even thinks he's the Messiah. If you just simply read the text, you'll see. Furthermore, he did not build a Bet HaMikdash. He did not bring peace. He only brought war. He brought murder. He brought pogroms, inquisitions. More Jews have died as a result of Jesus' teachings than anyone else. So the Messiah is supposed to bring peace to the whole world, needless to say, to the Jewish people. This guy brought blood being spilled. The opposite. So I'm not really sure what lies you have been fed, but it's simply there's no qualification whatsoever that he meets. I've read 3 of the books that you've sent me so far and started with the small ones. Very good. Baruch Hashem. Keep reading, keep learning. You'll keep growing and keep getting closer to Hashem with each one. Also good to do, by the way, if possible, is to take notes. When you learn Torah, not just the Chumash, any Sefer Torah, any book of Torah teachings, Musa, anything, is to take notes. But you don't necessarily need to make them very long notes because then it's going to make it very difficult for you to learn and go through the material. But anytime something jumps out at you that you want to remember, try to write it in short form. Try to write a few words, a bullet, a short sentence of what you just read, either on the side of the book, in the white area, or you can have yourself a special notebook for your Torah teachings. Same thing you should do with these lectures. I've told people this, countless times, that when you watch my lectures, when you watch any Torah scholar that's teaching you real Torah, you should be watching with a notebook. You should write notes of things that are being said that you want to remember, that that are important, that are valuable. You should have Torah notebooks and fill them up, because that's not only going to elevate your learning, but it's also going to elevate your memory, remembering them. And it's also going to make it easier for you to apply them to your life. When you're just listening to a lecture or just reading a book and are depending on a one-time interaction, meaning you hear once and that's it, or you read once and that's it, it's very, very difficult to remember the vast majority of what you've learned. Why? Because you've only had a single interaction with it. You only heard it once, or you only read it once. Whereas when you write down notes, then what ends up happening is that those specific things that you write down now have multiple interactions. One, let's say, for example, if it's my lecture, you heard it once, that's the first interaction, right? It's the first interaction. 2, you are writing it, that's the second interaction. 3, you're reading what you're writing, it's a third interaction. So you've already used multiple senses to interact with the same information multiple times. So that's going to help you remember the Torah, and it's also going to become closer to your heart because you've read it. And it's certainly, if you review your notes from time to time, that's going to elevate it even more. But the saddest thing is when people listen to Shiur Torah for 5-10 years and without writing notes. Why? Because you see that those people have one common denominator, which is they have stunted their growth. Their growth is limited. Where initially they made certain changes, they applied to their life, they they know a few things, but they're never going to become anything special. Why? Because the vast majority of the stuff that they're reading or they're listening to disappears. They forget about it. So it becomes nothing. And in fact, the Gemara in Masechet Sanhedrin says that a person that studies Torah, here and there, whenever he feels like it, is considered like a womanizer. Goes from woman to woman. This is the Gemara in Masechet Sanhedrin. So, point is that when you watch lectures, or listen to lectures, and you read books, try to take some notes. Again, you could either write it on the side of the book. You could write it on a separate book. Say if anybody ever looks at my books, the way you know whether I read it or not is simply you open up any page and you see notes. And that's the way, many Chachamim do. But as one fulfilled the task of listening to the Torah by as if he read it? No, you're supposed to read it. You're supposed to read it. If it's not possible for you to read, where you don't know how to read, and the only thing you can do is listen, then you have fulfilled the obligation by simply listening. But if you can read and you choose not to, then it's a problem. In fact, there are some men that the Gemara says they're so lazy that they don't want to read the Torah, so they have their wife read the Torah for them. And the Gemara says if he can't read, doesn't know how to read, and his wife reads it for him, or she reads the Megillah for him because he doesn't know how to read, then he fulfills the obligation. But if he can read, he knows how to read, but he chooses not to, then him listening to his wife reading to him is going to bring a curse upon him. So it goes, depends on the circumstance. If you can read, read. Parashat Shavua is supposed to be read. Torah is supposed to toil over it. Effort, not spoon-fed, like a baby sheep. Don't be a baby sheep. Be a tzaddik. Be a tzaddikah. It's so scary that Yoshke was a Jew and people got so hurt because of him. What could have been the reason that he, not necessarily another, was the reason other Jews got hurt? Because he is the one that taught things against the sages. He calls them the Pharisees. He called Rabban Gamliel, all of the tzaddikim, he called them Pharisees, and he turned them into the enemies. And the New Testament talks against the Jewish sages regularly. New Testament is the most anti-Semitic book in the world. If people actually know what it says, they'll see how anti-Semitic it is. And unfortunately, most people don't realize what the words mean. So Pharisees is referring to the sages, the Jewish sages. And Yoshke, Jesus spoke against the sages. He hates the sages. This is the reason why the Christians and especially the what are they called? Messianic Jews, which is really Christians in disguise, or the number one thing that they hate is the oral Torah. They hate the Talmud, they hate the Gemara, they hate the Mishnah, because that's where all the sages are, and those were the enemies of Jesus. So he caused damage, and he's still causing damage to this day, and he's in Gehenom until this day, and he's never going to come out. So as far as how did he fall, it mentions it in Mishnah in Masechet Avot, in the first Perek, in the 6th Mishnah, it talks about Yeshua ben Perachia. Yeshua ben Perachia was one of the sages, and the Gemara in Masechet Avodah Zarah says that he had a Talmid, and if you have the uncensored version, where there was the original Talmud, before the church forced the sages to delete Jesus' name from certain parts of the Talmud, like Masechet Avodah Zarah, Masechet Sanhedrin, Masechet a couple of other places, Gitin, you'll see that his name was there. His name was there. He was mentioned in the Talmud that he was the wicked Talmid. Originally he was good, Talmid of Yeshua ben Perachia, but then later on he became a heretic, an enemy. Either way, he was a mamzel. His mother was cheated on her husband with somebody else, and that's how he came to the world. I have a bunch of lectures about this topic on my channel, on my application. If you want to watch them, just simply type the name in the search box, and you'll see. There's a bunch of lectures talking about it, bringing a lot of sources, historical sources and biblical sources, and so on. Why is the New Testament anti-Semitic? I just explained it. One of the other ways that you could simply, just any person with common sense would understand that the New Testament is anti-Semitic is because the New Testament is saying that at the end of times, when their false Messiah comes back, there's only going to be 144,000 Jews remaining. The rest of them are either going to die or they're going to convert to Christianity. So in so many words, there's nothing more anti-Semitic than that. To say that if you don't convert to Christianity, you're going to die, with the exception of the 144,000, which means that 99.9% of all the Jews, apparently, according to the New Testament, are going to disappear. That's by definition is anti-Semitic. You want the end of the Jewish people. So that's not good. That's it. It's in the text. It's not something I created. And when he's saying the Pharisees are the enemies, Pharisees are our sages. Rabbi Akiva, Rabban Gamliel, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. These are all our sages. He calls them the enemies. You came to learn about Jesus from a Jewish perspective, and now you're addicted to Jewish teachings. Baruch Hashem. Eventually you'll abandon those false teachings of Christianity and Jesus, and you'll be only with the truth of Torah. Let's see. What do we do when the Yetzirah attacks us in the middle of a bracha, like Birkat HaMazon, and can't concentrate and make many mistakes, and sometimes can't even continue if our life depended on it? Okay? I don't think I've ever been able to concentrate for more than one or two sentences in Birkat HaMazon or prayers, and it's a miracle if I don't make multiple mistakes. I've tried going slowly, but it seems to make it worse. Making mistakes is permissible as long as you do your best and correct yourself. Especially when reading. Reading, there's everybody makes mistakes. Even the best of readers makes mistakes. Of course, through practice, a person becomes better. the words become more fluid, and you understand more, but everybody makes mistakes. There's no problem with making mistakes as long as you try your best. That's one. As far as having kavana when you're praying, the first and foremost is a person has to change their scenery, meaning that they have to eliminate every possible distraction, whether it's the phone or it's the TV or it's anything else. And for that time that they're doing the Birkat Hamazon or they're praying, whatever it is, everything else is gone. Even if the phone rings, it doesn't mean anything to you. Let it ring 500 times. It's irrelevant to you. You simply are doing what you're doing. Now, yes, it's going to be distracting to hear a phone ring, or it's going to hear a bell ring, or whatever it is. But you know that you've made a commitment once you started, is that you're not going to stop. So that's two, is to make sure that you eliminate the distractions. And I think that those two alone are more than enough to improve things. Now, as far as to increase kavana, is to understand what you're reading, to understand actually the words that you're reading, which means that you'll have to, not at the time necessarily that you're reading it for the sake of the blessing, but rather study what you're actually reading. Study the actual text, just like you study the Chumash, or just like you study the Gemara, or you study any other Jewish text. Study the Birkat Hamazon, study the Siddur, read it, see what the words mean in your language, and try to understand more and more. And last but not least, pray to Hashem to help you. Pray to Hashem to help you. Now, for those of you that are Jewish, if you pray to Hashem to help you, certainly He's going to help you. For those of you that are not Jewish, if you are praying things that you're supposed to for the sake of practice for your conversion, then no problem. You pray that Hashem is going to help you. Over time, if you pass the test, He'll help you. But if you're not planning on converting, then you should be asking yourself, why are you doing those prayers? Because those prayers, like Birkat Hamazon, or the Shema Yisrael, or Amidah, those are all prayers that are specifically for the Jews to do. It's not for non-Jews to do. So if you're having a tough time doing it, that's because I'm telling you that you're not supposed to be doing it. You should be praying from your heart, meaning words that are coming out of your heart, not words that are coming from the text. But if you are in the process of conversion, you are looking to convert, then certainly you have to continue learning, continue doing it as if you are already Jewish, but you'll have to pass the test. You'll have to overcome the obstacles. And Hashem does not give people Torah knowledge just because they're smart. Hashem gives people Torah knowledge because they deserve it. This is actually one of the things that Shlomo Melech taught us, and it's customary to have that segment as one of the things that a person says before he starts learning Torah. As a Noahide, am I allowed to do the washing of the hands in the morning and say the morning blessings? No. You can wash your hands, but to do the blessings that are from the Siddur, you're only allowed to do it if you're either Jewish or you're in the process of conversion, and therefore it's considered practice for you. But if you're not planning on converting, then there's no reason for you to do the blessings, because the blessings for you would be a lie. Because the blessing says, Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav etzivanu, that bless you Hashem, King of the world, that sanctified us and commanded us to do such and such. Hashem didn't command you to wash your hands. Hashem didn't command you to do any of the things. He commanded the Jewish people. So you're allowed to do it if you're in the process of conversion, because it's considered practice for you, and you have to practice before the final day when you finally convert. But if you're not planning on converting and you're just a Noahide, then you saying that blessing is considered lying. It's considered a lie. It's not true. It's the same thing with keeping Shabbat. When a person sanctifies the Shabbat by, let's say, doing the candles to welcome the Shabbat, if that person is Jewish, good for them. They made a mitzvah. They fulfilled the obligation. If the person is a non-Jew that's in the process of conversion, then good for them. They're fulfilling their obligation of practicing before they finally become Jewish. But if that person is not Jewish and they just sanctified the Shabbat, they are a liar. And according to the Rambam, they have a heavenly death penalty waiting for them. Why? Because you just said that God commanded you to sanctify the Shabbat, but he didn't command you. He commanded the Jewish people. So that's the problem. When people do not listen to the entire Torah, but they only listen to parts of it, they end up creating new religions. They end up creating new religions. This is what happened with Jesus. Jesus was a Jew. But he wanted to do things his way, not the way of the Torah. What ended up happening? He created a new religion. And now he's in Gehenom and he's never coming out. He's never coming out. Muhammad also, he wanted to take the Jewish teachings, where he actually had a Jewish scholar write down certain things for him, and he wanted to manipulate it as if it's him, as if it's his teachings. But when he came to the Jewish sages and he said, oh yeah, I got this prophecy from an angel and so on, the Jews rejected him. He said, this is nonsense. It's nonsense. So he killed all of them. But what ended up happening? Create a new religion. Nowadays, you have people that listen to lectures by different rabbis, read books that are readily available for very, very cheap prices, and they start keeping the laws of the Jews without any intention of becoming Jewish. And what ends up happening? They're creating a new religion where they're non-Jews that are observing the Shabbat as if they're Jewish. That is literally, by definition, that is creating a new religion. Because the Shabbat, being observed like the Jews, is a commandment for the Jews. Now, if you want to not work on Shabbat and go sit on the beach, go sit on your couch, by all means, enjoy. You want to, have a festive meal. Have a festive meal every day, including Shabbat. Who cares? No problem. Enjoy. Eat away. But if you're going to start doing kiddush, lighting candles, and acting as if you're Jewish when you're not, and you're not planning on being, then you are stealing a mitzvah from the Torah that's for the Jews, and it's considered as if you are a thief and a liar. You're not going to get rewarded for that Shabbat. You will get punished for it. Now, you want to disregard or disagree with what I say? Enjoy the outcomes. I don't wish you anything bad. It's just what the Torah says. You want to disagree? Disagree. By all means, enjoy. Enjoy the outcome. So I also tell people that are heretics that don't want to change, don't want to listen. Refuah shlema. I'm just here to provide information to whoever wants to listen. You want to listen? Don't listen. But for those that are willing to listen, those that are listening, there is plenty of information the Torah is available to help everybody, both Jews and Gentiles, but you have to accept it and what it says and not what you want it to say. Okay, we'll take maybe one more question. What do I think about Amalek? I have an entire series that we've been doing about it. You could go watch it. We've done, I think, maybe a dozen or 15 different lectures about it. It's called The War of Amalek. So you go watch it and enjoy. Can you help remove... Sorry, I think the skin's... Sorry, it's... Yaron. Where'd it go? A person that wants to convert, reform, or conservative, is it considered under the same Shiur explanation a person that has Tavot of Esau? A person that wants to convert, reform, or conservative is simply doing nothing and is certainly going in the direction of Esau. Sure. I want to ask, why is it that in the Siddur it says, blessed are you Hashem, King of the universe, who did not make me a woman? Because every man is obligated in more mitzvot than a woman is. And since you are, as a male, a man is obligated to learn Torah. A man is obligated to put on tefillin. A man is obligated to pray multiple times a day, do the Shema Yisrael a couple of times a day. He's obligated to do a lot of mitzvot that a woman is not obligated to do, where all of the mitzvot that are bound to time, a woman is not obligated to do it, with the exception of Shabbat. But let's say, for example, praying at a specific time, or the mitzvah of the lulav, etrog, the sleeping in a sukkah. These types of mitzvot are mitzvot that are bound to time, and a woman is not obligated to do it. So a man, a Jewish man, says thank you to Hashem that he's not a woman, because now he could do more mitzvot. He could do more mitzvot and serve Hashem in that way. On the other hand, a woman says, thank you, Hashem, for making me the way you wanted. So what? Is the way that Hashem wanted is for a woman to be less? No, it's the way for Hashem wanted is that a woman fulfills those same obligations in a different way. When she sends her husband to go learn Torah, it's as if she's learning Torah. When she is dressing modest, it's even more sanctity, more holiness and protection than a man that's wearing tzitzit. In fact, the Gaon Mivilna says that a woman that is walking, that's acting and walking modestly, is considered in the level of a Torah scholar. Meaning most people would think that a woman that's modest is the equivalent of a Jew that's wearing tzitzit. Wrong. The Gaon Mivilna says a woman that's modest is considered like a Torah scholar. And obviously I'm referring to a Jewish woman. Jewish woman is modest, not just by modest with clothes. Modest, obviously, behavior. The whole thing is modest. She is considered like as if she's a Torah scholar. So she can fulfill the obligations that are the will of Hashem as a woman. A man can fulfill the will of Hashem as a man. But we thank Hashem that we have the opportunity to do it, that it's harder to be a man because we have to do more mitzvot. But it's harder to be a woman because you have to also carry the house, you have to raise the kids, and so on. So each person has a role. But we thank Hashem for each role, regardless of what the role is that you have. If you're a man, you have the role of a man. If you're a woman, you have the role of a woman. Dear Rabbi, in Toronto, Orthodox conversion is not even possible. So if you want to convert, move. It's not possible to convert Orthodox in a lot of places. Anyone that wants to convert has to move. Because the Targum Onkelos was originally from Mount Sinai, shouldn't that be the primary commentary, or at least the one that people should familiarize themselves with first? Well, everything is from Mount Sinai, including Rashi, including a book that's written today by Talmid Chacham. Everything's from Mount Sinai. Now, the Targum originally started at Mount Sinai because that's simply Moshe Rabbeinu explaining to them the verses. And Onkelos revitalized it because it was getting to a point of forgetfulness. As far as it is the primary, the Shulchan Aruch mentions the Targum Onkelos as that's what you're obligated to do. But Chachamim said that you're also allowed to do Rashi. Why? Because understanding what the verses say literally is good. But sometimes a person needs more than that. They need to understand why. And the why you'll get from Rashi. So whether one or the other, again, it depends on the time that a person has. Most people become familiar with Rashi before they come to Onkelos because Onkelos is not available in all languages, whereas Rashi is. Can you, here we go, Israel. Can you help remove the takana the Syrian community has in not allowing a convert to be counted a minyan? Can't marry, it's wrong. I've spoken against that takana, but it's to no avail, and unfortunately it will not be to any avail because they're not going to listen to me any more than they did not listen to Rav Ovadia Yosef himself. Rav Ovadia Yosef came to the leaders of the Syrian community and cried to them, literally cried to them, to remove this takana. They refused. If you don't listen to Rav Ovadia Yosef, you're certainly not going to listen to some zero like me. So it's not going to change. But I've spoken about it. The people of the Syrian community, many of them are big fans of mine. They learn many of my lectures. The rabbis of the Syrian community is a mixed bag. Some of them hate me more than they hate Hamas, and some of them are fans also. But they won't tell their friends about it because they're scared. They don't know if the other if the other rabbi likes me or not. Why? Because I speak against that takana. I've spoken against that takana many times. Thank you so much, Rabbi. I'm a Gentile and B'nai Noach, 7 laws observant. Truthfully, you are a light to the nations. Shalom, Rabbi. Your lectures make more righteous Jews and more light to the nation. Baruch Hashem. Baruch Hashem. Okay, Rabotai, thank you very much for learning with me. May Hashem bless each and every single one of you to succeed in all the good that you do, especially to apply everything that we've learned tonight together, Baruch Hashem, in this week. Anyone that hasn't watched the film or Ganuz, please go watch it. It's literally a gift that keeps on giving, even if you watch it for the 3rd time. It's amazing. No, I'm not in Muncie. I live in Florida, in South Florida. Anyone that wants to invite me to a lecture, you could send an email to events@bhtorah.org. They'll communicate with you of what's necessary in order for me to go to a lecture. To be honest with you, it's very hard for me to travel, but if it's worth it, meaning you're going to bring a lot of people and so on, I'm more than happy to go wherever it is that you want me to go. But many people are not able to do that. They want me to come, but they don't want to set up anything. So if you have a serious intention and you're able to make things happen, by all means, you want to send me an invitation, I'll come. So anyway, back to what I was saying. Anyone that wants to watch the film, go watch it. Download the AI Rabbi app. You can go to airabbi.org. You can download it in iOS or in Google Android. If you want to donate and support all the amazing things that the organization is doing, whether it's these Asher Yitzhar boxes that are being distributed all over the country and even in Canada, or it's the books that we have on there, or all the stuff that we give out for free, you could donate at be'ezrathashem.org or bhtorah.org. You could order these boxes to distribute in your community at kiruvstore.org and so on and so forth. And you've heard enough of me. Now, get some rest. Be'ezrat Hashem, we'll learn again next week. Kol tu, bracha v'atzlacha. Reuven AI speaking here. Let me be very clear about Shabbat. It is the foundation of Judaism. It's really crazy. This 13-year-old, no shame whatsoever, he belongs perfectly. In the time of the Tower of Babel, the time of Noah,